This episode of Dreams and Drive is brought to you by Olay Body. I'm loving the Olay Body Exfoliating and Moisturizing Body Wash because you don't have to worry about that oily coated feeling or harsh feeling exfoliation because this body wash rinses off clean and is gentle enough for everyday use. Olay Body, fearless in my skin.
And having your own strategy that is independent of whatever company you work for, organizations you're a part of is so important. When we're unhappy in one job, we're just skipping to the next one, hoping that by some grace of God, it'll be better. But what I teach anyone who works with me is that you have to build your own career strategy so that you can navigate the world of work how you'd like to navigate it. And that has to be with intention. You have to have a plan because otherwise you're just being shaken around and hoping that someone creates a plan for you. And that plan may not be the plan that you would like to execute. Hi, this is Kimberly B. Cummings, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 269 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today our guest is Kimberly B. Cummings, who is a career and leadership expert whose mission it is to help women and people of color navigate the workplace, make more money, and become industry leaders. Her personal and professional development company, Manifest Yourself, provides organizations with tailor-made solutions to hire, develop, engage, and retain women and people of color. And her work has been featured on Forbes, Money Magazine, TeenVogue, Glassdoor, CNBC, Fox 5, and more. And Kimberly is going to be sharing today her tips on how you can make your next career move your best move. And that's based off her book that's out now, Next Move, Best Move, Transitioning into a Career You'll Love. I spoke to her around the time that I was interviewing for my job, and she gave me so many tips that I took into the interviewing and negotiating process that I'm really excited for you all to hear as well. As always, if you enjoy this episode, please make sure that you're sharing with your own community. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And make sure you're using the hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing. If you want to join our weekly newsletter, The Keys, and make sure you're staying up to date with all Dreams and Drive related news, just sign up at dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. All right, let's hear from Kimberly.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So Kimberly, you know I love to start off all our interviews going back in time, right? If I had to say, what was Kimberly, the 8-year-old, what was inspiring you as a child, what would you say?
As dumb as it may sound, I just wanted to be Whitney Houston. That was
That's
it.
Interesting. That is interesting.
It is. That's really, when I was a young kid, I had parents who I always joke and say that I was grounded until I was 18. I was involved in every single activity known to man. Fun fact, I even played hockey at one point. But one of the things I loved to do was sing and dance. I studied vocal jazz for about 10 years. I started in piano and I wanted to sing everything. So I switched to vocal lessons very quick because my singing abilities were more advanced than my piano playing abilities. So I made that jump. So I think at 8 years old, I was just obsessed with music. I was trying new things. And I always wanted to just strive for doing it the best. I think I have a very strict father. He was in the military. So he always pushed me to do everything the right way and to be the best at it.
So you wanted to be this when you wanted to be Whitney Houston as a kid. How did that dream pan out for you as a young adult, right? Because we now know you're not a professional singer or dancer, right? So
yes.
How did that dream morph for you as you got older?
So I performed a lot growing up. So I won the National Choral Award twice in my high school. I did a lot of regional choral things. I was president of the chorus. By the time I got to, I even won Bolton Idol when American Idol was really hot and my hometown did American Idol, but Bolton Idol, I won that too. When I got into college, I wanted to major in music education and my parents were not having it in any way, shape, or form, literally crying in the academic counselor's office because my dad said, you're not doing that because you're not going to make money. And I did about 2 semesters as a music education major, but it was so rigorous. Music ed students generally have classes that are half a credit, quarter credit, 1 credit. So you end up taking all these classes and it was so much. And I got to the point where I realized I love performing, I love singing, but I don't necessarily love all of the theory and all of those things. It's really just performing. So I naturally ended up pivoting and found myself in business administration. And that's what I ended up graduating with my undergraduate degree in.
Did you feel like you had to sacrifice a part of yourself by making that switch, right? Because that could be difficult to think you're going to do one thing and then you end up doing something else. How did that feel for you when you made that pivot?
It did. I think you put it perfectly. I had spent so much of my life doing music up until that point. I even hosted a 26-song benefit concert right before I went away to college. So when I tell you I was obsessed with music, I was obsessed. I loved it. And I think to this day, music is something that makes me incredibly happy, but I wish I stuck with it in more of the, I could go up and do karaoke, or I could, hop on stage with a band real quick when they have the karaoke's with a live band behind it. I think I wish I did more of those things, but I think as you get out of the performance mindset and whatnot, I am no longer as confident as I was. As you get older, your voice changes. I'm definitely out of practice, but it's something that I enjoy. I'm definitely that person who sings in the shower at all times. I sing in the elevator because it has the best acoustics in my building, and I'm known for sending voice notes to my friends and actually singing full out happy birthday. But that's where it is right now.
So, it's interesting. You graduated with a degree in business administration, but then you went along the career, and you worked in the career coaching, career leadership world. Like, how did that switch go? Because it wasn't necessarily a business job. You know what I mean? How did you land up in working at colleges in their career offices?
So it definitely was a stumble. It wasn't necessarily intentional. And in my book, I kind of break this story down a lot because I think most people think their career is something that is like a ladder. You just go up, 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 and up. And that's definitely not how most people's careers are. So right after college, I worked in a small marketing firm. I didn't stay there that long. I didn't really love it. It was more data analytics. I moved into personal finance then, a referral from a network friend of mine. I ended up working in banking as a personal banker. I did that for almost 2 years. Really liked the money, but I realized I wasn't a salesperson. And then I moved into admissions at a college. When I was making that transition, I remember the last time I was truly, truly happy was on a college campus. And I had done a lot of work with administrators and whatnot when I was a student. So I was like, how could I kind of come back onto a campus? So being in personal banking, financial sales, I was like, hey, I can probably do educational sales, selling education to students and families. That worked out well. I really enjoyed that job, but at that time, as crazy as it sounds, like education, the pay at that time was not very good. And I had to go over a bridge. The tolls went up that year, and it just wasn't like financially savvy for me to continue to be in that role. And I also didn't like how students, they don't really remember their admissions counselor. Most people don't. You meet with them, you talk to them all the time in the beginning, but then once you get into school, there's no need for the admissions counselor anymore. And I wanted to build a longer term relationship with students. And a role opened up in my alma mater, Long Island University. And I was like, hey, like career development, I think I can do this. It was an entry-level role. They liked that I'd worked in a few different fields prior to that. So me kind of figuring out my own career worked well for thinking and helping students how to figure out their careers. And I was hooked. The first time I saw a student get a job as a direct result of working with me, it was the best feeling in the entire world. And of course, it took me time to kind of get good at it and learn different career paths and whatnot outside of the ones I experienced. Mm-hmm. But I still remember that feeling, knowing that they landed the job. I was so proud and just excited. And I stuck with it ever since.
It's funny because I keep trying to remember, maybe you can jolt my memory here. How did we first meet? I know you ended up working in career services at Princeton University, my alma mater, right? But did we connect before then? I can't remember how we first met.
I feel like it was either two places. It was either you have a mentor who I know as well. I think we either met at Princeton in some capacity, or we met at some type of like Black Girl Magic event at New York City.
Wait. Were you at Christina Brown's Love Brown Sugar?
Yep, that's it. Yep.
Wait, now I remember. Were we walking home together? Do you remember that?
I think we probably did.
Was it the time it was the snow and you I think you were like, you just moved back to Jersey or something like, I forgot what it was.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about snow, that was the year that her event, it was that first Saturday in the new year.
Yeah.
And it was a hellacious snowstorm. I remember it took me well over an hour and a half to get back home driving. So yes, I think that's where we met for the first time.
Okay. So we crossed paths at Princeton University while I come from that background. I was an intern in the career services office. Eva Kabu, who we both know, was somebody who really helped. I want to say she's probably the reason why one of the reasons why I'm interviewing people now. She was the first person who gave me a camera and said, go interview people on campus and come back and write blogs, right? So that's where I found this passion. You mentioned that you had this passion that you realized there was something there when your first student got their first job, right? How did you then go about, we're going to be talking about during this interview, we're going to be talking about how listeners can make their next career moves their best moves, right? At this point in your career, were you seeing this as, all right, if I do something with this career in the career services, servicing students, I could really build a life for myself that I love?
100%. I think after that student got a job, after working with me, coaching, et cetera, in the office, and I was so happy, I literally just doubled all the way down. I was like, oh, I love this. I need to figure out every single thing about this industry. I need to learn about all of these different majors, all the different career paths. And in the office that I worked in at that time, I worked with current students, I work with graduate students, and I work with alumni. So it wasn't just students at that time, like undergrad traditional. I got the opportunity to work with people at various stages in their career. And as people change roles in the university, and as I changed universities over time, I was able to learn about everything from education to tech, computer science, marketing, business admin. I literally work with every type of career except for probably lawyers and doctors. Those are the only two fields that I haven't really worked as people get into their professional field. But everybody else I've worked with, and I just got obsessed with understanding the different career paths so that I can help people. Because as you change someone's career, you ultimately change their life. We spend 40 plus hours a week in work. If your job sucks, then I'm pretty sure your life may suck too. So why not find a way to make that happy? And I also wanted to grow into various roles in career services. So I started studying the fields of, I always joke, like the greats in the industry, the directors, executive directors, deans. And I made sure I created my own strategy on what are the skills I needed to learn in order to position myself for one of those roles. So it wasn't just counseling students, it was understanding employer relations and how do you get employers to come to campus and create programming. It was doing specific things for the alumni so that they're interested in coming back and mentoring students. It was understanding managing finances and operations and assessment. I made sure that in each step I took, I learned more about that arena. And then I ultimately ended up moving into talent acquisition over time because I wanted to see like what the corporate side is as well.
What was motivating you at this time? And I asked that because not everyone goes into jobs with this strategy to succeed and to excel, right? So was there something that was motivating you? How did you know that this is what you should be doing if you want to get to the next level?
That is such a great question. And I don't necessarily know that I knew. I knew at that time that I really enjoyed working in career development. While in my first job that I had in career services, I also joined a professional association. I talk about this in my book too, because it was the first time I even learned about professional associations. It was called NYSEA, the New York State Cooperative and Experiential Education Association. Really long name. And I presented at their conference, like a little study that I had done with one of my coworkers about student learning. And it just opened up this world of, oh, there's other people doing this in other universities. And I got to meet them and see them and learn about them. And it really just reinvigorated the sense that I was able to do a lot in my field. And I think that's what kept me motivated. I feel like many times at our jobs every single day, you just know your job. You may know your job, maybe your colleague's job, your boss's job, maybe your skip leader. But when I got involved in professional organizations, it gave me eyes in different organizations, different colleges, universities across the state of New York. And I saw what the potential was and that I wouldn't necessarily be locked into a particular role or experience. I knew I'd be able to grow. And I was just excited to kind of build my arsenal of knowledge.
Interestingly enough, alongside building your career, you also, I don't want to call it a side hustle, right? But you were also building your own business, right? You had manifest yourself. Talk to us about why you launched that and how you were managing this alongside what seems to be a very demanding jobs that you were in.
So number one, I always say that I'm a little crazy.
We all are, right? We all are.
Yes. So I think we got to add a little spin on that too. But one of the things I noticed in career services was that underrepresented students, Black, Latinx, and women in some institutions did not come to the office at the same rate as their peers did, non-minority students. And I really felt strongly that they needed this knowledge. So in career services, I would always try and partner with the multicultural groups to really entice those students to come. But they still weren't necessarily coming. And as I was building my career, and I love public speaking, I've always loved public speaking, I started to build a network.
Houston in you.
Yes, apparently. I love public speaking. So as I was out and meeting more people and doing more things, I continuously started getting invited as Kimberly B. Cummings, or Kimberly Ann Brown back then, Kimberly B. Cummings, to come out and speak to organizations, meet different people. And I knew that there was something more than just my job. And I always believe in having something else, right? Like most employees are at-will employees. So you always need to be prepared for whatever it is so you can be resilient and you're not just swept off your feet if something happens. We've all learned that during COVID-19, I'm sure. So as I started speaking and talking more about career development topics outside, people eventually started asking me like, hey, do you work with students here? Do you work with students here? Other agencies would reach out and say, hey, would you be interested in serving as a career coach here and manifest yourself? It started before anyone knew me as a blog where I was actually talking about health and fitness and wellness. I was very obsessed at the time with achieving optimal health, and everything just started to merge. I felt like I was essentially living two lives. There was Kimberly B. Cummings, who was passionate about diversity and inclusion, career development, leadership development. Then there was Kimberly B. Cummings, who was like this underground fitness blogger talking about all the things and trying the really hot classes in New York City. Mm-hmm. So I ended honestly just merged them all. The fitness part eventually rolled off. Like you don't really see any of that content now because Manifest Yourself really is much more about consulting individuals on companies about how to recruit, retain, and promote their underrepresented talent in the workforce.
You know, what I find there that I think a lot of us millennials, most of the listeners of this podcast are millennials, so I'll say that broadly. You know, a lot of us millennials, we often don't know what to do when we're multi-passionate, right? It's like, which one of our passions do we pursue as the career, and which one of the things do we pursue as the other thing, right? Mm-hmm. How did you guide people through that? Because I'm sure that's something that must have come up in your work.
Everybody is a little bit different. I know that isn't the perfect answer, but I think it really depends on what they want to do. So if we look at the side hustle in general, one of the first questions I ask anyone who's side hustling is, A, what is this to you? Is this going to be something that you're going to continue to do for a lifetime? Do you want it to be full time? Is this just something that's fun? And one of the indicators I always see with clients is, hey, like when you're really busy at work, what happens to your business? Right. And if you're someone who's like, oh, I just shut it down. Like I'll come back when I want to come back. Then that's kind of an indication that you really want it to be and stay a side hustle. But if you're looking to really build something that can support you financially over time, that you're looking to transition into full time, I think there's a different level of prioritization. I'm very proud that well, I've been doing it for a very long time now, but I've been proud that I've still been able to rise in career development, talent acquisition, D&I at the same time I was building my business. But I won't lie and say that it's not difficult. It's very hard. I've gone through lots of conversations about conflicts of interest, about GCO and the work that I do outside. There's lots of different things you need to navigate, especially if you're building a career based upon the skills. Well, if you're building a business using the skills that you've built in your career, right? If you are doing what I do in career and leadership development, but you have a body butter business on the side, generally you'll be fine. But if they're adjacent to each other, then it gets a little bit harder. And I think you just have to ask yourself, what do you really want? For me, I got to the point in interviews where I was saying, hey, I've built this company, manifest yourself. And if I have to choose, I'm not choosing you. I'll be here. I'm going to do phenomenal work. I'm going to continue to do phenomenal work. But if you come over here trying to stomp out my company, you're going to lose me. And it took me a while to get confident, but I got to that point where I was like, no, so if my work day is busy, all that means is I guess I'm going to be up really late at night or I'm going to get up really early in the morning to get the things done for my company. That's all that means to me. So I think it's perspectives.
No, I love that you mentioned that because I think it's a real conversation that we need to have because a lot of us I'll put it this way. I don't think everyone needs to be an entrepreneur, right? And I think that's why I really wanted to have you on the show because it's even something that I'm asking myself now, right? I've been out of the full-time world for the past 2.5 years and I'm contemplating maybe I can still do what I love to do, but also have a 9-to-5 job, right? So talk to us about why realizing that or why the statement that everyone is an entrepreneur is one that we really should reflect on as we're thinking about how we're building our lives.
So I think the word entrepreneur, especially maybe it's just me getting deeper into the business world over the past few years, but I feel like everyone looks as an entrepreneur as someone who is running their own company. Like you are a CEO, whether you're a solopreneur or have a team, like that's how entrepreneur is defined. However, there are really strong entrepreneurial ties in some companies. Like I believe it's Amazon. So if anyone listening from Amazon, you can let Dreams and Drive know if I said this right or didn't. But Amazon even has a program where you can create your own products and services and test them within Amazon. And if they work, you get to work on that team and everything else, and you get credit for the work that happened. There's people who could be entrepreneurs within a company. I've had, let's say 1, 2, 3 inaugural roles where I was the first person to come in. I had to build the strategy, create the roadmap, hire a team, and build out an entire function within a workforce. That is just like entrepreneurialism. I'm not even sure if entrepreneurialism is a word, first of all. It's just like being an entrepreneur. We're going to roll with it, yes. But I'm like, it's just like that. I'm like, so I think people need to stop kind of putting the word entrepreneur in this bucket of working for yourself. It's the same way, like everybody on Instagram says that they have $1 million business. And you're not $1 million business unless you have $1 million in assets. Revenue does not make you $1 million business.
Yeah, or people who say they have $1 million idea, but if it's just an idea, that's all it is, right?
It didn't make $1 million yet.
Yep. I was watching, or I stole this from one of the segments that you did on Fox 5, but I loved it, right? The soundbite here is the idea of stop dreaming, start planning, right? And that's something that Dreams and Drive is all about. It's like you have this dream, you have to put it into motion. So your book that just came out, Kimberly, right? It's called tell us about it. I'll let you do the intro and talk to us about why the idea of being intentional, right, is really important to when we're trying to plan our careers.
First of all, I am so excited to even talk about it, y'all. So the book is called Next Move, Best Move, Transitioning into a Career You'll Love. And the book brings you through a process of evaluating your own career, understanding what your short and long-term goals are, personal branding, advocating for yourself, and a whole bunch more, leading all the way to developing your own 2-year career strategy. And having your own strategy that is independent of whatever company you work for, organizations you're a part of is so important because many times we're treating jobs like boyfriends and girlfriends. Like everybody has that serial dater, right? They broke up on Friday, they got a new man or girlfriend by Monday. And we're just hoping, like when we're unhappy in one job, we're just skipping to the next one, hoping that by some grace of God, it'll be better. But what I teach anyone who works with me and what I'm teaching in this book is that you have to build your own career strategy so that you can navigate the world of work how you'd like to navigate it. And that has to be with intention. You have to have a plan because otherwise you're just being shaken around and hoping that someone creates a plan for you. And that plan may not be the plan that you would like to execute.
Hey, Dream Drivers. As a new mom, my shower time is also much needed me time and self-care time. It's one of the few spaces to get those must-have moments for mind and body. Plus, feeling my best helps me reach my fullest potential for the day. When you look good, you smell good, you are ready to do good. That's why I love Olay Body Exfoliating and Moisturizing Body Wash with sugar, cocoa butter, and vitamin B3. Some of the things I love about this product is that it's made with cocoa butter, which feels ultra nourishing to your skin. Also, you don't have to worry about the oily coated feeling or harsh feeling exfoliation because this body wash rinses clean and is gentle enough for everyday use. Plus, you can have a lot of trust that this product works. Olay's 65 years of beauty science is incorporated into this product with body care designed by skin experts to improve the look and feel of your skin from head to toe. You definitely need to give these Olay body washes a try. They completely change how I thought about my body care routine in my shower. As I said, shower time is precious, so I invest in the best. You can find Olay body products in store or online. Olay Body, fearless in my skin. So where do we start, right? Because I think for a lot of us, we know where we want to go, but we're just not quite sure how to get there. But there are some of us who really feel like we're in the wrong career. We just don't even know where to start. So where do you normally tell your clients the first thing they should be thinking about?
The first thing that we talk about is really evaluating your own experience. Like, where have you been? Where would you like to go? You have to take stock of all your experiences first so we understand what is the baseline, like what's in your toolkit that you can leverage to move into the next arena. So many times when you're in a job and you don't want to be there, you don't like it, you don't like the company, you're just thinking about escaping. But in order to really utilize your skill set, you have to understand where have you been, what can you pull from, and how can that relate to the next job? And then we start thinking about what actually makes you happy in the world of work. So what are your core values matched with your experiences that will allow you to seamlessly transition into the next arena?
Do you have an example of that in real time, someone you've worked with and how they were able to clarify these things for themselves?
Definitely. So I have a client who I'm currently working with who has spent years doing marketing, writing in like nonprofit areas. And unfortunately, they were laid off due to COVID. So they kind of found themselves doing some freelance work, but they really wanted to navigate back into an arena. They wanted to navigate back into a formal 9-to-5 job, but they wanted to apply those skills into recruitment, specifically with inclusion and diversity. So when they were taking stock of all their experiences, they had marketing, they had copywriting, they had events. They also had a little bit of time in financial services. So they had a few different skill sets that they were able to pull from, and their core values were really about inclusion, really about helping people execute and building plans. So while they did not necessarily have recruitment experience, we were able to really navigate, okay, if this is where you want inclusion and diversity, you want to help connect people to opportunities, why don't we start thinking about recruitment marketing with an inclusion and diversity angle? And they were able to transition within a few short months. Yeah, you can you pull all these things together. And I think this is really where my years of career services experiences come in, because I feel like I'd have students come in and be like, hey, like I love skating and biology and like deep sea diving. Like, how do I make a career out of this? So I feel like that kind of suits me for this work. And we really were able to connect that to recruitment marketing, which is a huge thing right now. All of these companies are revamping their marketing initiatives to make sure that they are inclusive. They're creating new websites, they're creating new events, they're creating new language around inclusion and diversity. And that was perfectly suited for what this person wanted to do. And they're able to transition and ultimately get that job and, of course, negotiate a great salary along with it.
I was going to say that. So once you clarify what it is that you're truly looking for and where it is you're best suited, then what's next? Because sometimes the job search itself can be intimidating. And that's where a lot of people fall off, right? It's so easy to just go back to what you always known or to apply for the jobs that you think your resume reads best for, right? So what tips do you have for people who are then navigating the job search process once they've put together the plan?
The number one thing I ask people to do is understand what their gaps are. Okay. We all know where we want to go, but we don't necessarily understand what is the gap from where you are to where you'd like to go. And is that a gap that you essentially need to fill? Like you need experience, more skills? Do you need to bridge it? Or is that something you can kind of learn through relationships, through informational interviews? What is it that is in there? And a lot of times for my clients, it could be relationships. So for that client, we really went through and figured out who is it that they needed to talk to? Who do they need to build relationships with? What companies do they need to really get introduced to help navigate their search and help position them in the role that they wanted to be in? That was really the gap. But for anyone, it could be different things. It could literally be a certification course. It could be understanding the terminology that's needed. So when I navigated from career services into corporate talent acquisition and D&I needed to understand some of the terms. So when I walked into interviews, I could talk the talk. I knew the stuff, but I didn't understand some of the terminology that was needed. So I started working with some friends and I reached out and did some cold calls with folks who already worked in talent acquisition so I could learn the language to articulate what I was already doing. So the gaps can be a bunch of things, but as you're navigating that search, it's so important to kind of get away from just submitting out cold applications, what I call the wish and a pray method, and just hoping someone hears back, but understanding why would someone not call you back? What is going to be the number one question that they ask you that you may not have an answer to? And how can you bridge that gap preemptively to make sure that the process goes even smoother toward the end?
I feel like one's personal brand, and when I say that, I'm talking about how you are presented during the interview and job search process is really important. And nowadays, social media is huge, right? People's online presence matters. But a lot of us sometimes wonder, how do we strike the balance, right? Do we just make sure our resume looks good, or should we be making sure that there's alignment across all of our online brands? That could be LinkedIn, that could be Instagram. How do you approach the actual telling of your career story so that people can find you, or that people know more about you when they're doing the research once you've applied?
So I believe in having consistency across whatever platforms you're using for the job search. So you don't have to go forth and start building out a Twitter just for your job search. Like that doesn't make any sense. I generally make the recommendation that your LinkedIn needs to speak to where you'd like to go. And if you are multifaceted, work through that. Make sure you can tell the story of why these 2, 3, or 4 things are connected and how that positions you as a great candidate. Make sure that your resume is up to snuff. Make sure that it's speaking accurately about your experiences, and everything you have on your resume is actually something that someone would like to read, and not just because you're giving the laundry list of all the jobs that you've had over time. Making sure that when someone stumbles upon you, because there's an active search in that you're actively applying, reaching out, but there's also a passive search. And if you're someone who, I'm going to just say, if you're listening to this podcast and it's about career development, I'm pretty sure if you are not a high potential employee or talent that you would like to be, that's why you're listening to something about careers. That's what I tell anyone. Like people who want to rise to the top in their careers, listen to career stuff. If you are listening, you want to be seen as high potential for people who don't even know you. So while you could be active, like applying, you also want that passive interaction, and to make people passively reach out to you and say, hey, I heard about this opportunity. I think you may be a good fit for it. Or I'd love to have an exploratory conversation about this role that may be coming up. You have to have a really great passive experience online. And generally that's LinkedIn. Companies pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to have enhanced LinkedIn access so they can sort, filter, and find people who'd be a great fit for their roles.
Ooh, now that we're talking about LinkedIn, so I feel like it is the world's best, not the world's best search engine, right? That world's best social media app that so many people just don't give enough credit to, right? I think people get intimidated by LinkedIn so much. So for people what are some of your, let's say, top 3 LinkedIn tips that you give to your clients that can really make or break the job search process?
Number 1, stop putting your job title in like your header. Let's stop that. I can't stand that. Put something that identifies like the work that you do, because you don't need to be tied to you are director of blah, blah, blah at this company. Remember that you are lending your skills to whatever company you currently work at, but your brand is not solely tied to that organization. Your skills follow you, and then the company loses them. So put more information about your industry, about what you're known for in that header. Number 2, curate your summary. Tell a story about yourself. Make people understand who you are. Essentially, when you ask that question in interviews that says, or when they ask you, tell me a little bit about yourself, fill out that summary. The way I explain it to folks is if you got asked to go back to your alma mater and speak on a panel about what you did after you graduated, what would your bio say? That's very similar to the summary, except you just want to be a little bit more action oriented and make sure you tell people what you're good at and what you'd be able to do in the world of work. And then of course, you want to fill out so maybe I have 4. Of course, you want to fill out where you've worked, your work history. I kind of care, but don't really care if you pull in the bullets from your resume. That's the quickest way to do it. That's fine. But at least put in your work history. And you can put almost everything on LinkedIn because people kind of like to see what you've done, how you've navigated. Unlike a resume, you need to pull things out to make sure it directly relates to the job. On LinkedIn, you can kind of put most of the stuff on there. And then last but not least, make sure you work on your skills and endorsements. So back in the day when LinkedIn launched the skills feature where you can put everything from public speaking to Microsoft Word to resume writing to JavaScript, people got really intimidated because they would look there and if they didn't get endorsements, so it quote unquote didn't have likes, they were like, oh gosh, it's bad, I should take it off. But that tells people what are the skills you've acquired. And those are search features that can be used by other organizations to find talent. And then endorsements, what's better than having someone kind of give you a recommendation, right? Just a quick recommendation to see what other people say about you. I really like to look at those when I'm looking at candidates. Of course, I'm looking at all the traditional stuff, but I always think it's kind of good if you see some endorsements there too of people recommending your work.
Thank you, Kimberly. I feel like, if you're listening and you don't have a LinkedIn, you need to take Kimberly's tips and create one because
Yes,
so many people are missing out on opportunities and aren't really leveraging. And there's even so much you can do as a free user, right? There's of course like LinkedIn Premium and different levels of access you can have as a job, someone who's looking for a job, but utilize the free features as well, right?
Yes, you don't need to necessarily get a premium profile. I definitely don't think it's needed. I honestly didn't have a premium profile until maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, and I still got passive asked to interview for jobs. I got all the things that people say you get when you get premium, but I got that without a premium account. If you're on the hunt for a job and LinkedIn asks if you want to sign up for like the free trial of premium, 100% test it out. I think it just allows you to do a little bit more, internet stalking, find out more about people who you're interviewing with. And that is really helpful. But I wouldn't necessarily say you have to go purchase it right now.
Yeah. So let's get back into making our next career moves the best move, right? So what if you're in the job, you love what you're doing, but you feel stagnant, right? What tips do you have, or how do you normally advise people to really make sure that they are going up the ladder or they're excelling and not just staying the same place in their careers?
So when it comes to moving into higher level roles, that's again another area where you have to assess what your gaps are. So many people think because they've been in a role for a year or 18 months or 2 years, that makes you should move to the next role. So if you're an analyst, well, I've been here 2 years, I should be a manager now. But that's not necessarily how it goes. There is a skill gap. That's why you were hired as an analyst, because there was a gap between where you are and the manager role. So it's understanding, have you showcased the skills and knowledge needed to move into that promotional opportunity? And I really work with my clients to make sure that they get everything they can out of the job that they're currently in. Because that's the longest interview you've ever had. So when you interview and people ask what you've worked on, what you've done, what you've experienced, you can do all of that in your current job. I always ask you to stretch for more stretch projects, volunteer for things, innovate on your job. Because if you're waiting to innovate when you get the new job, that's the first thing that someone's going to ask you. Well, why didn't you start this here? Or why was that idea not here? It's easy for an external candidate to come in and sell an organization the dream. And if you're internal and have been half-stepping and not doing what you need to do because you're bored, it's very easy for them to go with the external candidate instead, because you've been here and didn't think about these things, do these things already. So understand, what is the gap between where you are and where you'd like to be. Figure out how you can position yourself for that role. Think about what are new projects that you can take on so that you can showcase the skills that you have. What are the relationships that you need to build? Who are the new people who would be your peers in that role who you can start having conversations with? And just make sure that you are doing everything to the best of your ability before you go ahead and make that leap, especially if you're someone where people aren't reaching out to you and you got to kind of start from the ground up. Make sure that you've done your due diligence before you really start pushing for that promotional opportunity. And before you ask the next question, I will say a lot of people will ask right after that, like, well, what happens if my boss stinks, or I don't have mentors and sponsors, or I really hate my company? And if you hate your company, or you feel like you're getting stomped out because your leader has kind of created a glass ceiling for you, and that's where you may have to decide if it's your time to go. I think I have a whole chapter in my book about like knowing when it's time to go. Like, sometimes you do need to leave and go to another company, but I would just ask that you kind of look at all the other things that you're currently doing first before you start jumping ship, because jumping ship isn't always the right answer, and it doesn't mean it will necessarily be better.
You must have read my mind, because I was going to say, but what if you're doing all of this, right, and nothing comes about? So let's get to when jumping ship is the best move, right? Is there ever a time when you're truly wasting your time by staying somewhere?
So yes, I think if you have tried to do all the things, right? You have talked to your boss about promotional opportunities and they said no. You've tried to create other mentors and sponsors and it really isn't working out well. And first of all, I mean, you really tried. Not you asked one person and they never got back to you and you're like, no, I don't have any mentors. Really try to cultivate relationships with your manager, with mentors and sponsors across the organization. If you've applied to a good amount of jobs and you've gotten feedback and you just haven't gotten to that next level, or if you honestly have a really, really bad relationships or something bad has happened at that job that's going to prevent you from getting to the next level, then it's time to go. I think I would be unrealistic if I said that every person, especially underrepresented minorities, are able to scale to the next role in their company, because there are bad bosses and there are bad companies, and that's a fact of life. So if you've exhausted all of your opportunities, then it may be time to move. I have some clients in companies where they know, hey, in order for me to get to the next level, a lot of times they want you to leave and come back. Well, then leave and come back. Even in my career, in career services, sometimes it's much easier to go to another university than it is to get promoted internally, because in higher ed, a lot of people stay forever. They've been in their jobs 10, 15, 20 years, just loving it. And if you work in an institution like that, if your boss, let's say you're up for the next role would be your boss's job and they've been there 20 years and don't plan on leaving, and you want to stay in that industry, well, time for you to go. So there are key circumstances. I just ask that you try all you can in your current job. But if you know something is really preventing you, then it's time to think about going elsewhere.
So I want to make sure that I don't, that we leave some of the tips for the book, right? So that people
Yes.
go out and buy it. But I have one last question, Kimberly. And it's the idea, it's the question about money, right? It's something that we all think about. A lot of times, especially underrepresented minorities, especially women of color, right? We don't often, petition for what we're worth, or we often lowball ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your approach to making sure we are getting what we're worth and we're not leaving money on the table during the job hunt process?
So I'm going to start at the end and then jump back to the beginning.
Okay.
So the end is that you have to ask. You have to ask. Even if you feel uncomfortable, even if they told you this is the max salary that they're able to give you, you have to ask. Ask. Go and look at the research for whatever geographic area that you're in. Go ahead and look at the comparable roles in different companies. And we all know job titles are crazy. You could be called a manager here, a head of something else here, a vice president here. Make sure you do your research to truly understand like what are the comparable jobs, almost like when you're going to buy a house, right? What you look at when you look about giving an offer is you look at the comps in the neighborhood so you understand how much your house is worth. The same thing happens with jobs. Understand what the comparable job titles are, comparable industries, and what the salary is, and come up with your number that A, you'd walk away at, and B, you really want, so you can quote a range between $10,000 to $15,000. And don't be afraid to push and counter. If, let's say, you come in and you know you want to make $185 at this job, they offer you $150. Come back and be like, hey, so based upon my experience and skills in this area and based upon what comparable institutions are paying, I'm really looking for an offer closer to $185,000 per year. Now they may come back and say, hey, we could do like $170. If that's okay with you, you can say yes, but you can also negotiate then and ask for a signing bonus. You can ask for other like vacation time. You can ask for so many other things to kind of bump up your offer. But if I hop back to the beginning, outside of research, I really stress to all of my clients that you set the stage for your quote unquote worth the moment they interact with you. People think that salary negotiation is the last thing. They think it's that battle with the recruiter or the hiring leader when they give you the offer. But salary negotiation starts from the first interaction. Now, that could be a message on LinkedIn. It could be that first phone screening. It could be a bunch of different things. But understanding your personal and professional brand, understanding your impact in the workforce, making sure that you can tell stories that reiterate how you'd be able to come into this company and kill the game, help set the stage for the salary that they're going to offer you. The goal is that they give you a great salary offer. The goal is not that they lowball you and you have to climb your way up from the crap offer they gave you. They should want to give you a great offer because of how you've positioned yourself and how they know you are going to kill the game. I almost cursed right there. You're going to kill the game when you get into that job. So understanding your personal and professional brand, having great relationships, being able to navigate the interview process with ease, that all helps you get a really great offer. And I think that so many times we focus on that conversation and we don't focus enough on how to position yourself as someone who warrants a higher salary from the moment you get in the door.
Wow. I love that you mentioned that because that's something that I never even thought about before, that it all starts from that first interaction, right? Could you quickly just give us an example of what would be a negative point for a first interaction, right? That could cause someone to give you a salary less than what you're worth.
So I think when you get on the initial call, I think people want to know that you know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. They want to feel that you already understand the company, you understand the role, and you have thoughts, ideas, input, innovation into that role. Now, I'm talking about more senior level roles with that conversation, right? When you're coming in an entry level role, it's a little bit different. You're normally there to do work that is pre-assigned. You're generally backfilling another role or helping someone who's building a team and you have a specific set of tasks to execute. There, we just need to know that you can drive action in that area. They give you a task, you already know how to do it, you can knock it out, or you're easily trainable. But as we're talking to roles that are managers, managers of managers, so those managers, senior manager, director, first tier, VP level roles, you have to have your own ideas, your own thoughts, your own examples. And I think when you come out the interview, when you come on an initial phone screening and you appear to be a little wishy-washy, you don't really know how to speak about yourself, you're not confident, I think those are definitely, they're little alarms to whoever you're speaking with. You may not have it quite all the way together. Even if you're having an exploratory conversation, there should be some baseline knowledge you have about the company, where you see yourself fitting. Because as a candidate, so many times we try and fit into the job, but it's important for the job to fit into who you are. It's not just like a one-way street there.
Oh, these are all such great tips, Kimberly. I really hope that our listeners are taking, right now I'm taking so many notes because as you said, I'm a new mom. I've been out of the workforce, 9-to-5 workforce for about 2.5 years, but I'm thinking about making a transition back to the workforce. So this conversation really has been so helpful, and I know it really is going to impact our dream drivers as well. Before we get into our keys to success, though, I would love for you to plug your book, tell us about your book, where can we get it, how can we support?
Yes. So my book, Next Move, Best Move, Transitioning into a Career You'll Love. It is available on shelves, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, anywhere you buy books, Walmart, you can get it anywhere. And when I talk about making a career transition, it's not just about you transferring to a new industry, into a new company. Making a career transition is about finally getting into a career path that you love. It's finally looking at your job differently so you can get to the next level. It's about building an intentional strategy that's built by you for you. So I really hope that if you are a professional listening, that you will go ahead and pick up my book and hit me up online and let me know what you think.
So, Kimberly, I want to ask you this because I think we've talked about how you wanted to be Whitney Houston, how you now, you now are in the career world, right? You have a professional job. What's the dream for you now? Like now that you have this book out, you've had so much experience over these past years. You've seen so many things. What do you think is next?
Gosh, I just really care about impact right now.
Okay.
I want to be able to impact as many people as possible. So I just think about building my company at scale. A lot of the work I do is going into companies and building out trainings for women and people of color. So I want to use this book to kind of catapult more ways I can have impact, more leadership and career development training programs at companies and organizations, more books. I want Next Move, Best Move to be a series of books, more talking about management and networking and advocating for yourself, the whole nine. So I just want to be able to impact as many women and people of color so that while they may not be able to invest in a career coach or they don't even know that career coaching is a thing, they can buy a book for, I think my book is like $19.95, and they can really transform their career to create opportunities for themselves.
So last question, Kimberly, what is the most important thing you've learned about yourself during your dream driving journey?
So I think I'm resilient. I think that I am working harder now than I've ever worked in my entire Black life. And I never thought that I'd be working this hard. But I've also learned that I need to celebrate my wins. I've had a history of not celebrating accomplishments or wins that have been pretty big in my life. I just move to the next thing or I grind through whatever I'm working on. And that's something I need to work on in this next phase of my life is being able to celebrate. So fun fact, when I signed this book deal with Wiley, I didn't celebrate it at all.
What?
I just started writing. No,
you didn't
I did
pop
nothing.
A bottle? You didn't get some ice cream cake?
No, I think I signed the contract. I took a picture and put it on LinkedIn and Instagram, and then I just started writing. So I need to be able to sit back and celebrate the things that I've accomplished because I understand that they are great. I understand that I'm only going to make more impact. But I also need to appreciate myself in the process.
So, Kimberly, you cannot be a dream driver without your keys to success, right? So can you tell us 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road?
You need declarations and affirmations. You need to affirm the life that you'd like to have and speak good things over yourself because there's too many people speaking bad things over you. You need to have a plan. You need to have a strategy so that you know what your charge is every single day when you wake up and put your feet to the ground. You have a mission and you need self-care. Whatever works for you so that you can replenish yourself so you can keep moving. As much as I said, I don't celebrate myself, I am reckless about making sure I rejuvenate myself. It may not be on the schedule that people think it should be on. Probably should be a little bit more frequent, but when I do get down, you can't even reach me because I need to rejuvenate myself.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. Kimberly, can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you online? If they want to connect, they want to follow you on the interwebs, let us know.
Yes, so you can find me at KimberlyBCummings.com. If your company is looking for consulting, that is manifestyourself.com. And you can find me on Instagram, Kim B. Cummings. And if you search Kimberly B. Cummings, you'll also find me on LinkedIn as well. Please feel free to follow.
All right, so that was a wrap for episode 269 with Kimberly. I hope you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you're sharing with your community. We are Dreams and Drive across the board, and you can use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing as well. If you want to join our weekly newsletter, The Keys, you can sign up at www.dreamsanddrive.com/join. Our merchandise store is open 24/7 online at www.dreamsanddrive.com/shop. All right, guys, I have really enjoyed sharing with you different career stories over these past few weeks. I hope that you enjoyed them. Stay tuned for next week's episode. As always, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 270. Bye, guys.